the communications director for Big Island Invasive Species Committee, and currently the acting program manager. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second here. Okay. And I'm going to go to present. All right, are we getting a slide? You see it, Roshan?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so yes, what are we up to? We're up to a lot all the time. The first thing, since I'm the first speaker today, I wanted to kind of, just for those who aren't too familiar with what the ISKs are, like, I'm sure you've all heard of us, but like, what is that thing exactly? We are actually a project of the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit at the University of Manoa through the Natural Resources Department. And so we are 100% grant funded. So we go out and we get our own grants, mostly through the Hawaii Invasive Species Council, but we get grants from everywhere. I mean, it's money, we grab it if we can. And we work through the university. Each ISK also has a steering committee on their respective island that's made up of folks from various agencies, federal partners, state partners, county partners, and for us, certainly nonprofits are involved. So we work with lots and lots of different folks. We like to refer to ourselves as the folks who fill the gap. So we kind of work in areas that maybe are outside the jurisdiction of, state tends to end where state land ends, federal tends to end where federal lands end. So we work on a lot of research projects and that and the like. So the biscuits, this was our last staff retreat. We do a staff retreat once a year. Our last staff retreat in 2021, we've actually had some staff turnover since then. So some of these folks have already moved on, including our program manager, Springer Kay, who was with us for 10 years. She has taken a job at Hakalau National Wildlife Refuge. So we're still hanging in there though. Basically the structure of our ISK is that we have roughly three teams. Obviously with a small group, you're always pitching in to help everybody else out. And that's certainly how we work. But we have our invasive plant control team, which is run by Jen Tamariki. We have our rapid ohia death and albizia team, which is run by Dustin Swan. And then we have the outreach team, which is run by me. And then we have core staff, of course, to support the entire program, which are invaluable. We have 3 base yards all located around the Hilo area. So we have to do that because we have too much people and stuff to all fit in one place. And it's very hard scrambling to try and get ourselves where we need to go, but we make it work. And I just want to say that we work everywhere on the Big Island. And remember that the Big Island is called the Big Island for a reason. All of the land masses of every other main Hawaiian island could fit within our borders and there'd still be some left over. We work everywhere from the northernmost tip of Kohala all the way down through South Kona, Ka'u. Obviously, lots and lots of work to be done in Puna and all through the Hamakua coast. So there isn't a district on this island where we don't have an active project going. Okay. Well, there we go. Oh no, I'm sorry. One of the pictures fell off. Sometimes that happens. But I promise you, we do have an invasive plant control team. They do exist. These guys basically they're going after our target eradication plant species. So one of the things that the ISKs work on is we identify new plants that have come onto the island and figure out, hey, how bad is this plant going to be? And if it's something that we think we can eradicate and it's going to be pretty bad, we should get rid of it now before it becomes the next Myconia, then we go after it now. So we have a list of targets that we are working to eradicate. We also have containment species, which is species that are outside of the potential for being eradicated, but we're still trying to keep them from expanding out of the area where they are. We have exclusion species, which would be something that we work with partners on. So for instance, we work on keeping fountain grass out of natural area reserves or the Volcanoes National Park. So we'll work with their crews crews to try and keep those really dangerous plants from coming in. And of course, we do lots of early detection. Our rapid ohia death and albizia team mainly handles the rapid ohia death detection and monitoring that we do on Hawaii Island, but they also provide support. A lot of the research that's going on, whether through PBARC or IPIF or USGS, the research that's going on in rapid ohia death that's taking place on the island, we provide field support. So if one of the researchers really needs a freshly infected rod log, it's our team that goes out there and cuts it down and gets it for them. But that team also works on albizia mitigation. Albizia is, I hope everybody knows, very dangerous, widespread invasive tree. And here there's a lot of albizia that's directly overhanging homes and roads and electric lines. It's very dangerous. And so we work with the county or Department of Transportation or Hawaii Electric Company or whoever is in the mood to work with albizia to try and mitigate that from those areas. And also we work with the community directly to train them on how to get rid of the albizia that's in their neighborhood safely. We do a lot of work on training people when and where to use pesticides and when not to. And of course, this team also does a lot of work on drone survey and detection of various species. So they've got a lot on their plate. And then the outreach team, obviously we do the stuff that you expect an outreach team to do with, going to classrooms, going to booths. I'm sorry, my dog just came in and is very excited and I'm getting a little distracted. And we do community training and support is a big part of what our team does. So we actually, again, we do a lot of work in the community training people when and where, how to use pesticides, because we have such overlap between folks who live, we have people here who have 2, 3, 5 acre pieces of land that are right pretty much in forest. And so you get a lot of overlap where we have invasive plants, invasive insects like little fire ant, Queensland longhorn beetle, those things coming in. So we work a lot with folks on how to mitigate invasive species directly on their own properties. We have a special program where we do a 1-year support program for neighborhoods working together to try and control little fire ant within their neighborhoods. And we also have a very active Plant Pono program. We maintain the plantpono.org database or a website. And we also do Mamala Poi Poi inspections and Mauna Kea inspections for things that are going up to the telescopes. So yeah, all of our teams have a lot on their plates. I don't know why this is so slow. Okay, so, oh, that one got weird. Oh, that's our target species. Sorry, something seems to have gone between when I started sharing and what was happening with the pictures. So we have about 10 target species right now. This was pictures of some of them, but I think it's going to be a little difficult, but you can always check on our website. We have a whole page that's dedicated to each of those species. And just to give you an idea, some of these have, obviously it takes a long time to eradicate a plant. Some of these we've been working on for more than a decade, but you can really see that the consistent work over time has outcomes. So we are very big on data collection, and we can really look at how many plants, when we're going back and revisiting areas year after year, how many plants are still left, how many are mature. And what we see is that over time, looking at our invasive species, you really do see that, sometimes you'll see these spikes, which is not that more plants suddenly grew. It's just that we found a new location that we didn't know about before. And so that's more plants now. But you can really see that over time, we're getting down to the end with a lot of these. Within the next few years, especially these 3 that I'm showing right now, we do expect that we will be able to announce that those are eradicated from the Big Island. We did announce in 2019 that we had eradicated pampas grass. We no longer have pampas grass on the island. Now, as with all eradications, they can surprise you. We had one person reach out to us about a year after we declared pampas grass eradicated and say, hey, I found your website. Can you help me get rid of this thing? I think I have it in my backyard and it is so, I've been trying to get rid of it for years and I can't. We went out, it was pampas grass, totally not something we would have seen if the person hadn't reported it. And then we were like, okay, well, we re-eradicated pampas grass. So we're working on a lot of those. One of our newest targets, for those who are not aware, we did detect in 2020 Chromalina odorata, or devilweed, on the Big Island. So we are going hard after this one. It's a noxious weed. It's one of the worst weeds in the world, one of the 100 worst weeds in the world as per the IUCN. So we are really focusing on this one, again, because where we know it is in Puna, it's in a lot of backyards. So in this case, it's a lot of outreach work where we are really relying on the public to take pictures and send them in and say, I think that's what this is. And so the public has been awesome. We've gotten over 100 reports, and about 5 of them turned out to be devilweed. So it's pretty good return on investment there. Oop. I just went out of it. Okay. Are you guys still seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. It did my screen did something weird. Okay. Like I said, we have devilweed all throughout Puna, which is not great. You can see that that kind of spottiness indicates to us that it's still in a lot of places that we don't know about, which is worrisome. So one of the things that we started doing was working with Conservation Dogs of Hawaii. They have been working on devilweed on Oahu, and so we brought them over. The dog is trained to sniff out devilweed, which is so impressive. And this is Kana. She's the devilweed sniffing dog, and really working in several locations that we knew that we had devilweed, but going in there and having the dog tell us if we had extra outside of our buffer zones. And the dog did find plants outside the buffer zones. So we are like, there's going to be a lot of devilweed work coming up in the next few years. We're going to continue to work with them. And as you can see, this was the site of the original infestation, and those little yellow blue dots up there are where the dog scented. So the line, the big fat line that goes around the outside, that's our buffer zone. That's where we were searching for devilweed. As you can see, just outside that yellow line at the top of that road right there, the dog detected devilweed. So it indicates to us, using the dog has been a great tool, because it indicates to us that our buffer zone for Chromalina might not actually be big enough. We might need to be looking a little further out. So we're going to continue to work with them. Another of our big projects is Plant Pono, which is headed up by Molly Murphy. And we actively survey the nurseries on the island looking for invasive species that we call our no-grows. And so it's a lot of education to ask the nurseries, please don't grow these things, but also as well to ask the public not to purchase and plant these plants. So we kind of focused in on what was in the trade, what was actually being found in the nurseries that we know is some of the highest offending invasive plants. And so we provide that list to the nurseries and we say, hey, these are the ones to be a Plant Pono endorsed nursery. And we'll give you advertising, and we'll give you stickers and a sign and all kinds of stuff to say, you know, you're Pono, don't sell these species. And before you bring anything new in, check and make sure it's not invasive using the plantpono.org website. And so we have, basically it's a voluntary agreement. And we have a lot of nurseries now who are about 20 something nurseries on the island who have agreed to be Plant Pono. And they also agree to use best practices to defend against little fire ant and koki. So we really try to push the whole, like, not nurseries avoiding being the spreaders of invasive species. But these are the no-grow list. And every year, Molly surveys the nurseries. She's looking for new stuff, and she's also looking even at nurseries that are not Plant Pono to see what's out there in the trade that they're selling that's on our no-grow list. We also maintain that Plant Pono website. So this is something that everybody should be familiar with and using and sharing with every person you know in Hawaii who does any kind of gardening. You can find your non-invasive plant on plantpono.org. So we do education events. We work with the master gardeners. We do special promotions. We do all kinds of stuff to really encourage both the public and the nurseries to be good citizens when it comes to planting Pono. It's paid off since we started we actually started the program in 2015, and we really started pushing it hard in 2017 when Molly took over and really started going off on all the education and out there with the nurseries. And what she has found through her nursery surveys is that we went from having more than 50% of the stores were selling at least one invasive plant to in 2021, we're down to less than 30% of stores selling at least one invasive plant. And the surveys that she just completed, we just finished up the spring summer surveys. It's lower than that. I think it's about 20% now. So we're really getting the word out, and people are walking into nurseries and saying like, oh, that's like blooming jasmine. That's invasive. You shouldn't have that. So we're seeing a lot of response. Such a good response that 4 of the original no-grow plants that we start with, she found none of them for 3 years in a row, found none for sale. And so when that happens, we basically congratulate all our nurseries, tell them they did a fantastic job, tell the public they did a fantastic job, and then we phase them out because there's always new stuff coming in, so we can always add things to the list. And that was something we did in 2021, is that we really focused on what else is out there that's coming in and being sold in the trade that we need to start worrying about. So we added some of these plants that you see here. They are Hawaii Pacific Weed Risk Assessment, assessed as high-risk plants. They are limited in naturalization, meaning they're not too widespread yet, and we don't want them to be. And we know that they are in the horticultural trade in Hawaii. So that's something that is of concern. So we work with a lot of stakeholders to review those plants, and then we decide to list them as no-grows. And now we have our 2022 no-grow list, which is a mix of some of the originals and some of the ones that we've added since then. And again, all that available on our website. Here's the no-grow list with the names. Still coming up, some of them, and some of them, like night blooming jasmine, are just repeat offenders that you just can't seem to get them out of the nursery no matter what you do. It's just people do not understand this one. Also in our outreach team, we've had to pivot a lot over COVID, as I'm sure everybody did. These are all pre-COVID, pre-2020 photos where you could see, wow, we're all just hanging out together. It's sort of weird now to think about how we all just squished together all the time, and it was not a problem. But like many other programs, we had to really figure out how do we do outreach in a way that's no contact. And so we went online like most folks did. And so we have Kavehi Lopez, who is our communication specialist that handles all of our online stuff. So we have a full-time person dedicated to our online communications. That's how important it's become. And so what she works on is our social media. If you are following us on Instagram or Facebook, you will know that our social media game is good. We work really hard to track what we are putting out there. How are people responding? What kinds of things, what types of posts get a lot of response? We use both Facebook and Instagram. So like we've noticed that some posts do really well on one platform and not the other. So the last couple of years, we've really focused on not just generating content, but really analyzing that content and looking at where we are doing well and where we need to improve. This is some of the work that Kavehi has done on really trying to make sure that we're focusing in, like everything looks appropriate for the platform it's on. So we're polished and much more polished and professional than when we started Instagram in 2016, and it was just me trying to upload a picture every week. We recently have been pivoting a lot to video. So video, as you all know, we're in a TikTok world now. We have not started a TikTok yet. It's a little bit much, but we are working with the existing platforms that we've had for a while, YouTube and Instagram Reels. And even we noticed that when we put out, like many programs right now, we are hiring. And when we put out our hiring call, we did much better, even with recruitment, by putting out a video of what your very cool invasive species field associate job could look like. So we're finding a lot of good response with video. We've done a lot of webinars and a lot of doing training and stuff via the internet on YouTube over the last couple of years. And so we have a pretty active YouTube channel, and over just in 1 year, we had 5,000 views of our YouTube channel. We've got about 30 something videos on there, so you can go check it out. You'll find a video that meets your interest, I guarantee you. And we just started experimenting with reels in 2022, and just 5 reels that Kaveh put together, we got 8,000 plays. So you get a pretty significant reach with these short form videos. So that's the kind of stuff those are the highlights of the things that this has been working on. We also had to pivot with here we go again, it's doing something weird. Our community support, LFA community, yeah, it's a broken picture links. Not sure what happened, sorry guys. Our community support program that we provide for little fire ants. We basically have a program that when someone comes to one of our trainings, then we offer them this support program that if they go home and they talk to at least 5 of their neighbors roughly in the same neighborhood, because we have a lot of open land here in Pune, a lot of unoccupied lots, that we will then come, and this is actually not just for Pune, this is the entire island, but it tends to be used a lot in Pune because there's a lot more fire ants in Pune. We will actually come out and we will do a hands-on training where we will work with those neighbors and we will help them throughout an entire year. So we give them a little bit of free product and free pesticide, and we side by side work with them to do a treatment. And then we do some online support and email support. We have a tech, Jade Miyashiro, who's our little fire ant tech. She will actually work directly with the folks on troubleshooting throughout the entire year. It's a very hand-holding kind of program. And 54 neighborhoods that we've supported so far, and over 175 training events in just a few years. So this is something that's been extremely popular in the community. And then finally, something that we have coming up that I'm pretty excited about, we have worked with the Jarvie Lab at UH Hilo, Kay Howe, for those that are familiar with rat lungworm disease, someone who's been very active in rat lungworm disease, to develop she developed a curriculum, and we've developed a professional development for teachers. So it helps teachers earn credit towards their raises. And we had done it prior to COVID, and it was an in-person extravaganza, and realizing that we could not do that during COVID, we turned it into an entirely online class. So the nice thing about that is that it's now available to teachers across the state, and this will be pretty much free. I think we're gonna have a $25 reservation charge, but it'll be a pretty much free opportunity for teachers across the state to attend this and get their credits and learn about how to teach their children and the children's families how to be protected from rat lungworm. Okay, that is BISC in a nutshell.
Thanks, Roshan. I have a lot to go over today, so I'm gonna go a little bit rapid fire. I put my email address in the chat box, also the email address for our public outreach coordinator, Aaron Bishop, who couldn't be here today. If you folks have any questions that we can't get to today, you can reach out to us. Before I start, I did just want to acknowledge the tragedy in Oahu Conservation, I guess Hawaii Conservation, yesterday with the passing of Nate Ewan, who is a brilliant photographer, native plant enthusiast, volunteered many, many hours to a lot of conservation projects throughout Oahu and throughout the state. So I just want to acknowledge that. Please keep his family and friends in your thoughts. And it's a huge loss, but we'll keep pushing through. So with that, just an echoing of what Franny said, I'm glad that she focused a lot on the way the ISKs are set up. We're set up similarly. Here's our current org chart. And what you will see, essentially your eyes are drawn to the colors. So everything that's grayed out is our positions that we've had in the last 3 years that are currently unfunded. We've been able to secure a little bit additional funding this year for a few years moving forward for Myconia specifically, and overall a little bit of an increase since 2020, but we're still pretty underfunded, and we're working hard to try and secure some additional funds. So big thank you to all of our partners and funders who have helped us out with getting these extra funds, and we'll continue to do that. The positions that are in green are positions that we're currently hiring because we did have a little bit of a bump this year as compared to 2020 and 2021. So we're not quite back at full capacity, but we're working towards it. Last year and this year, this is a list of our OISC target species. I'm not going to go over everything today. I'm just going to hit on a couple of the highlights, but You can see that we work on a number of species, a variety of species across the island, just like the other ISCs. Our primary, we have one field team, basically. Our early detection and rapid response team was unfunded for several years. We were able to secure funding, so that's one of the positions that we're currently hiring. So we're excited to get that position back, which will be helping out a lot with coqui frogs, little fire ant, and rapid ohia death. But with that, I want to just show an overview of where OISC works across the islands. Myconia is our highest priority target species. That work is focused in the mid and southern Ko'olaus on both the windward and leeward side of the summit. We do a lot of devilweed work that Franny was talking about that species as well. We do a lot of work in the North Shore for that. We work across the island for rapid ohia death, and there'll be some maps a little bit later on in the presentations that better show our effort for rapid ohia death survey and control. And you can see a number of other species here on the list. We do some trap checks at the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport for Africanized honeybee and coconut rhinoceros beetle. We help out HAL as much as we can. We are underfunded, HAL and HDOA. We help them out as much as we can, but we are underfunded in terms of little fire ant survey and control right now. So our outreach folks have been generous in whatever spare time that they have. They've been assisting in some field survey and treatments as well. So we'll start off with Myconia. Here's a quick snapshot of our effort by watershed in 2021. So you can get a sense for the acreage and the amounts of plants that we removed from the watershed. Myconia is our highest priority because it's also one of the 100 worst invasive species in the world. Several of our target species are actually, but on top of Myconia's prolific reproductive ability, which allows it to form these monotypic stands in tropical climates very easily, which prevent a lot of the understory from growing. It leads to a lot of erosion in the Mauka areas, which opens up areas for invasion by Myconia and other species, but it also has effects downslope for the Makai communities. There's lots of flooding, there's excess sedimentation into streams. And that excess sedimentation and the non-point source pollution that it collects along the way is then during heavy storm events on Oahu is then kind of catapulted out to our nearshore areas, creating conditions that are not favorable for a lot of our marine native species. And it creates conditions conversely that are quite favorable for a number of invasive algae species. So this is our number one highest priority species at OISC, and we spend the most time surveying and controlling for Myconia. If we zoom in on those watersheds, these are the watersheds last year that just had plants. So I want to draw your attention first to the 8 mature plants in Kauai Nui. This is a little bit more than we normally get on average, but about in the ballpark. We're usually between 8 and 10 or 11 per year. So it's good that we found this. This did lead to a big buffer expansion for us. So again, that emphasizes the need for additional funding. Also, I want to draw your attention to the 2 mature each in Ka'alu and Ka'alaia. These are 2 watersheds on the windward side of the Ko'olau Range. Ka'alaia is our highest priority watershed right now. It has a fairly dense Myconia population there. A lot of those plants are creeping up to higher elevations. And historically, we had been controlling these plants with the use of herbicide ballistic technology because the plants are in very inaccessible areas by ground. When Dr. Leary left and the label expired, it took a while for us to get the label back. It is back now, and we're working to reintegrate HBT into our operations, because in the meantime, we've been able to maintain some level of aerial control with the spray ball, but unfortunately, we can't get to all the plants with the spray ball due to the topography and the dense vegetation over there. And you wouldn't think that this 4 in the immature column in the Waiava watershed is important when you look at the other numbers on this slide. But the reason this is important is because these are the first 4 plants detected in the summit region within intact native forest, which is not good. And that's our goal right now, is to make sure that it is not establishing in the native forest. So we were able to mobilize quickly, treat those 4 plants. We monitor this area regularly, but it is concerning, as you'll see. And then, of course, these higher numbers are representative of the seed bank in these areas. But as you'll see with these 4 immature plants in Waiava, Waiava is directly over the summit from Ka'alaya, our highest priority watershed. So the thinking at OISC is that these seeds are getting blown up over the summit and establishing in that native forest area. So we are heavily monitoring that. You can also see the buffer expansion here. This is where the 8 mature Myconia plants were detected last year, and our crew worked really hard to survey and control any plants found in this new expansion search area. Is really difficult hiking over here, lots of dense vegetation, lots of steep features. We also did have a slight buffer expansion in the Waiava area within that, in the Waiava watershed within that summit area. So we're continuing to monitor all these areas. Myconia surveys for us come up on a 3-year rotation, unless it's deemed too steep. When something's deemed too steep within the inner buffer, and those are those black borders, we fly those areas with a helicopter, and because we can't get in there on the ground, we fly those every 2 years. The search area between the black line and the red line, that's the aerial buffer, or the aerial donut that we call it here at OISC, and that's flown once every 7 to 9 years, just to look for outlier populations. Our data collection and analysis shows that 99% of plants are found within 1,600 meters or less than 1,600 meters of each other, and over 84% of them are found right within 400 meters of a mature. So we really focus on the inner buffer, but as funding allows, we do search the outlier areas via helicopter to look for any populations that may be establishing outside of our search area. One of the tools that we've used that's been really helpful for us has been our Myconia model. And the reason that those 2 mature in Kahalu were really important is that they were in an inaccessible area by ground, and we needed to treat them chemically from a helicopter. The landowner is one that is historically very resistant to chemical control of any kind. So we had to work with them over the course of about 6 months to try to figure out a plan. We explored some other options, such as short hauling folks in there to hang from the bottom of a line on a helicopter, and hand remove. That was not feasible in this state. So essentially we were able to convince them that we did need to control these plants. And one of the things that helped us really tell that story was this Myconia model. The Myconia model is very conservative that we use here at OISC, because a mature Myconia tree can produce up to 9 million seeds per year. Our model has any mature tree producing only 20 seeds. That's because even in these conservative parameters, it tells a really distinct story, but also because the computing power that it would take to get those kind of outputs with 9 million seeds per year, that would be just too much that OISC can, that OISC has the computing capability for it currently. So what this slide indicates is those white dots in the middle, those are the current population at the time. And then the lighter purple dots show the spread of Myconia in 5 years, and the darker purple show you just how much Myconia can blanket the forest if left uncontrolled. So this told a really good story to the landowner, and we were able to work with them and get these plants treated. And this continues to be one of our best tools to explain to folks what would happen, why what we've been doing for the last 20 years is really important, and what would happen if we stopped doing this kind of control. It's led to increased funding, and we're going to continue to use this tool for a variety of purposes. With that, I'll jump into devilweed. Franny discussed this a little bit. Devilweed has been our target species that we've spent the second most time at OISC. This slide gives you just kind of a breakdown of our acreage, the plants removed, and we'll talk about our 2 primary field sites for devilweed. One is Kahuku Training Area on the North Shore, and the other one is Ahupua'o Kahana State Park, close to the North Shore, but along the windward side of the island. I do want to draw your attention to our Devilweed Crew program. That's a citizen science program that our outreach team was able to establish when our volunteer operations were shut down and we were no longer permitted to take volunteers up to the Pupukea Paumalu Forest Reserve to do devilweed survey and control because of the pandemic. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. And we also partner with a number of agencies for this species, including the Army Natural Resources Program, who's been a great funder and a great partner to us, but also the conservation dogs of Hawaii, who use canine detection to, like Franny had discussed, for early detection purposes, and they've been really great. We also work with Board of Water Supply on this species as well. The first site we'll talk about is Kahana Valley. This is a site that we're actually finding success, and success given this species is pretty unique. Success for us means dwindling population, declining hotspots, because the species tends to form thick stands when it does establish. And this species is one that is spreading pretty widely now across the northern part of this island. It's likely in other places in the island that we haven't detected it yet. We're starting to transition a little bit more towards outreach for our overall devilweed strategy, but this site in particular, because we're having success with it, we're going to continue with our boots on the ground effort over here. Some of the reasons that we think we're having success with this is not the prime habitat for devilweed. Devilweed likes more open areas, more sunny areas. Kahana is very wet, it's forested. But one of the interesting thing to note is there was a historic fire in this area, and while devilweed can be a fire fuel, it's also been shown to establish quite easily and quite quickly post-fire. So the burn area matches up pretty closely with this croto population, and something that we continue to analyze. So here you can see a graph since the population was detected in 2014, as the hotspots have kind of continued to establish, and we've continued to use both a hybrid method of ground survey and aerial treatment, and then ground resurvey to confirm treatment. So it's been working really well. It shows that this species is eradicable so long as you catch it early, and so long as you have enough funding and resources to dedicate to this, but especially when you have a species that's trying to establish in a habitat that it's not primed for. In contrast, this is our Kuleana area within the Kahuku training area. This is not the entire Kahuku training area. This is just the area that OS focuses on. And the main takeaway from this is that in conjunction with ANRP, we've been able to mostly keep the populations the same-ish. We've seen spikes in certain years, and one year we only went about half the amount of time that we went another year, and so there's a little bit of a spike there. But we've been able to, within these areas, maintain the population. The problem is that the devilweed is spreading outside of these areas, and the populations aren't really decreasing in any sizable quantity in this area. So along with ANRP, we're in talks to kind of transition our strategy to a more outreach focus, and really trying to prevent this species from establishing on thoroughfares like trails, roads, parking areas as much as we can. With that, we'll jump into Cape Ivy. This is actually a species that we're having more success with than some of our other target species. It's primarily in Palehua. It's our #1 target in the Waianae mountain range. There was one plant found in 2015 in somebody's planter box, on Tantalus Drive. That plant was removed, and we've continued to survey that property and adjacent properties and have detected no other plants in the area. So we feel pretty confident that that was just a one-off outplanting in a pot that was unable to spread, which was really good. So up at Palehua, after years of delimiting the buffer area, we've come up with these subunits, which are the areas outlined in the more pale yellow border. These subunits are surveyed annually, and then the area between the pale yellow border and the brighter yellow buffer border, those are surveyed on a rotating basis, pretty much because we don't have the funds and capacity to survey all of it every year, but we're able to get eyes on this area as well to make sure that it's not spreading. We just don't get to all the areas each year. So far the strategy has been working out well for us. We've been seeing sizable declines in this species. Once we transitioned our herbicide regime, we switched herbicide regime a little bit before 2015 or around 2015. And what that did was that allowed us to bring down the population numbers rapidly. And then we were able in 2017, 2018 to transition to hand pull. So that was good because when we hand pull, we were able to make sure we're getting, every fragment of that, every fragment of the plant that, that we can see removed from the watershed. It's bagged, the bagged vegetation, and is then taken for incineration at the H power plant. So we're having pretty good success with this species. We're going to keep on moving forward. Another species that we're having pretty good success with in terms of the eradication timeline is Himalayan blackberry. We still call it rubdis, or we use taxon codes here at OSC a lot. So we still call it rubdis because it hasn't been changed yet in our database. But I just want to be sure that folks know that the actual name of this species currently is Rubus armeniacus. And we're still trying to find time to make those switches in our database. But in any event, this species proliferates in the Pololo region in southeastern Oahu. Our two major field sites are Waima'o Stream area and then Ma'umai Ridge. And we've been able to get to these areas. We're ongoing. This is an area that's currently being surveyed by our teams right now. We typically survey these areas in the summer. And we've been able to see sizable decreases in populations. Similar to with Cape Ivy, we were able to get the populations low enough that we now do not need to use any kind of chemical treatment for these plants. Our staff take out digging implements and go out, and they're able to actually hand remove this small amount of plants remaining in these areas. I do quickly just want to acknowledge that there are two smaller populations to the north and west over here. These are inaccessible right now due to access permission and without getting into too much detail, an unsafe situation for our field crews to be in. So unfortunately, we haven't been there in a couple of years, but we continue to work with folks throughout the state and these landowners to try and gain access permission again. And here you can see again, I apologize, this graph is going the opposite way of the Cape Ivy graph. I should fix that. But what it does show you and what it does indicate is that what we're doing is working, and it's just going to take time, but we've been able to reduce the population over the years. And we're seeing some success with this species, and we hope to continue this success, and hopefully we'll be seeing eradication write-ups for this species and for Cape Ivy soon. And just a nice little graph, since we've started working on the species back in 2003. You can see the spikes after initial detections, and then we've been able to gradually reduce those down. So good success story for us, and they're few and far between given the nature of our work here. So we like to highlight those as much as we can. This is a species, K&T Tibicina herbacea, that we're not having as much success with, unfortunately. This is a multi-agency effort with the Ko'olau Mountains Watershed Partnership and the DLNR's Natural Ecosystem Protection and Management folks. This species is mostly in the Paumoho region of Oahu. There have been single individuals located elsewhere, but follow-up delimiting surveys have yielded that those were likely hitchhikers along buttes or something like that, and that those areas are continuing to be surveyed, and we've seen no recruitment. So we're pretty confident that those were kind of one-offs. But in terms of what OISC does, you'll see the kind of more pale yellow border near the summit region, one on the windward side and one on the leeward side. Those are the core populations, and those are what OISC focuses on. We go up there, we make 12 trips per year up here, do some work in the cores, reduce the population, survey and control. And then we also do some camping operations with funding provided by the Watershed Partnership Program grants and the Hawaii Invasive Species Council to do some adjacent survey and control to make sure that we're not missing populations, since this is a species that we've been able to maintain the levels okay enough, but we're not really seeing a sizable decrease. We're not seeing them establish outside of the areas that we work too much either. But as you can see in the southwestern portion of the map on the state of Hawaii TMK, those were two new populations that were discovered last year by folks at KMWP and NEPM. So we're continuing to work with them. You'll see the points going along the stream towards the north. KMWP focuses on the stream while we focus on the core populations, and NEPM focuses on any areas within the state forest lands. So this is our ground effort in 2021. Again, we're able to do some meaningful work, but we're not seeing the decreases that we'd like to see. This is just a quick shot of our aerial footprint here. And we do aerial surveys and aerial treatment on the windward side because there are some inaccessible populations. As many of you know, on the windward side of Oahu, of the Ko'olau Mountains, there are very steep, sheer cliffs, and it makes it impossible to get to by ground in a lot of situations. So the main goal of our aerial operations at Pomoho is to make sure that outlier populations aren't detected, so that we know that the plants are kind of staying contained within this area for the most part, but also to treat those inaccessible populations. So one way that we like to measure success, or measure success for cane tea on here at OISC is mature plants per acre. And what you can see is over the years, we have seen some spikes. We've been able to bring it down about to the levels where that we were seeing when we initially detected the species, but we're really not seeing a sizable decrease. And we do need more funding, more resources to see a sizable decrease. So we continue to work on that. We did get a little bit extra funding this year. So we're utilizing that, but moving forward, we're hoping to get more funding to dedicate more time and resources towards the species. Rapid ohia death is another one of our species. So luckily for us on Oahu, we still have had 0 detections of leuco-ohia, which is the more virulent species that kills the trees more quickly, but we do have some positive detections of huli-ohia, which is the species that forms cankers and kills the trees more slowly, but does kill the trees. So what you can see in this spatial representation is the yellow is our rapid ohia death aerial surveys for the year. We fly the entire ohia distribution in both the Ko'olau and Waianae mountain waters, or excuse me, in the Waianae mountains ranges. And what that does is it allows us to rapidly assess forest health, mostly in terms of ohia. It allows us to find symptomatic trees to then ground truth, see if we can get there, take a sample, hope that it comes back negative. But if it does come back positive, it gives us a tree that we can then go remove from the watershed and hopefully remove that capacity for infecting other ohia trees. A lot of our sampling efforts come from public reports, which is great because it indicates that our outreach is working really well, thanks to island-wide and statewide coordinated efforts. So thank you again to all the partners who help us with that. If we zoom in, we also do trail surveys funded by the Board of Water Supply, and we focus on trails, of course, within the ohia distribution area, but also trails that are reported to have symptomatic ohia along them, trails that often go up to the summit regions, just because those are our high value forest areas that we're trying to protect the most. So to date on Oahu, we have 9 total huli ohia detections. 3 were in 2021. One was, we've had 1 so far this year, still 0 leuco ohia. You can see a lot of our samples come from public reports. We do the island-wide surveys twice per year, so that results in a high amount of acreage that is rapidly assessed for forest health. And OISC also co-leads the Oahu Rod Working Group. Typically, we have bi-monthly meetings. We're starting to transition to quarterly meetings, but that's in conjunction with folks at the DLNR, folks at CGAPS, and other partners. So we encourage participation in that working group if you have any stake in ohia, which I'm sure many of you do. So if you're interested in joining that working group or sitting in on the meetings, just shoot me an email. Some other field efforts, like I said, we have some work at the port of entry with the state funds, which is really great for both Africanized honeybee and coconut rhinoceros beetle. And we've also assisted with LFA surveys with our outreach staff, given our limited field capacity and funding at the moment. That I'll jump a little bit into outreach. And again, I apologize for going quickly, but I'm just going to rapid fire through these. So we do have program goals and kind of internal goals here at OISC with our outreach on top of our deliverables to funders. And we have species specific messaging, which is something we've started to focus more on recently. So we're looking in 2021, we were looking really to focus on Miconia, little fire ant, doubleweed, and rapid ohia death. Our outreach team did a great job providing messaging via social media, a lot of virtual outreach. As Franny said, we had to transition as well. So they did an excellent job. And as we can start to reintegrate to in-person outreach, we are going to maintain our social media footprint and our virtual footprint as much as possible, because it's been really helpful for us. And we've seen recruitment for positions and things like that increase as well, thanks to social media. But the main goal of our outreach is to not only raise awareness and knowledge of invasive species, but it's to generate and increase support for OISC fieldwork, because as you can imagine, on Oahu, we have so many residents, so many tiny parcels separately owned, that it takes a lot of work to acquire permission to access these properties to look for our targets. So it really helps us with our field work, and it's a mechanism for early detection that OISC has lacked in the last few years, because we haven't had the funds to establish our early detection. So outreach is super important. Our team does a great job. And in terms of breaking down the audience, you can see in 2021, to no surprise, social media took up the largest chunk of our outreach, but we're able to still distribute some products and do some school visits here and there. And we'll be looking to increase those types of outreach events as much as we can for this year and in the coming years. For our public reports, you can see the vast majority of our reports are Koki. We do pass on along these public reports that come directly to us to our partners at HDOA. And the Koki reports are the highest, because we do have a Koki population in Waimanalo right now that HDOA is taking the lead on, and we're working really hard with them to try and get some funding so that we can assist them to eradicate this population before we get widespread Koki frogs along the windward side of Oahu. It's really important. So we're hopeful that the funding that we've already written for this year will come through, and that we'll be able to provide more support to HDOA and the state partners at the DLNR to reduce this. But our second highest is rapid ohia death public reports, and that's really important because that, again, is where a lot of our sampling comes from. So that's really great. You can just see another breakdown in terms of when it's confirmed to be that species. We do get a lot of folks calling us reporting species that it actually ends up being a different species, but that's okay. We would much rather have folks call us and be cautious and than the other way around. So that's great. You can just see a dip for our volunteers since 2014. We were able to get a few volunteer trips in 2020 before the shutdown. And then our devil weed crew is actually what's helped us maintain the volunteers in 2021. So as you can see, we talked about it a little bit before, but essentially this is facilitated through a Facebook group. Folks reach out who are interested, join the Facebook group. We send them identification materials, guidelines and instructions on how to survey and what kind of data we need collected. And they use the All Trails app to collect the data. So this has been really helpful for us. And then because social media was so big, I just wanted to quickly go over some social media stuff. Similar to Bisq, Facebook and Instagram continue to be our two most popular platforms, and posts do differently, perform differently on each platform, which is really interesting. We do have a TikTok. We are struggling to populate our TikTok with material, but we're working on it. We know that that is a popular platform that a lot of younger people are using, so we're trying to break on through, and we continue trying to build our YouTube library with cool videos, because as Franny mentioned, videos are really helpful for outreach. Of course, our meme game is also strong, so give us a follow. It's pretty funny, and our again, shout out to our OISC outreach team that they do a great job. And just quickly rapid fire some 2022 updates. As you can see, looking very similar to 2021. We've had a lot of the same target species for years because it takes a while to eradicate these species. So we'll continue working through those. You can see the Myconia treatments so far in 2022. About the same within the same area, but we are still getting treatments. Myconia is a very long-term eradication goal, so this is expected. You can see the additional funding that we got this year and next year. The grade out surveys have allowed us to do quite a bit of additional survey outside of our core typical Kuleana areas, which is great. And we'll keep working to get more funding and capacity to increase our efforts there. Like I said, we've just started on our Himalayan blackberry surveys, so we're pretty much finished with Maumai, but we need to work on over to the Waimao area, and we're still working on access permission for the other sites. and Delodo still plugging away. So far, we've done one round of the island-wide digital mobile sketch mapping helicopter surveys. We started the second round last week. Our one positive sample, positive detection for Julio was in Kaneohe so far this year at a residence. And you can see kind of our effort for sampling elsewhere. In terms of OISC, we have the same, pretty much the same program goals, but we do want to increase participation in the Devil Weed crew since we're transitioning to a more outreach focused strategy there. And then we did want to highlight cane tea as well this year in our messaging, just to demonstrate how important it is for us to control that species. Here's a comparison of the Devil Weed crew last year to this year. We're always looking for more folks, so if you're interested, check the link. You can go to our website, oahuisc.org/volunteer, to get there. And our website has a lot of information on what we do, so feel free to check it out. It was started in August 1st. We to increase participation, we embarked on this Devil Weed Crew Challenge in 2022, swag by the mile. So the more miles you rack up, the more swag you get, specific to the Devil Weed Crew. And we're working on some collaborative projects. Some of the stuff we do all the time, or every year, each year: Stop the Ant Month, Ohia Love Fest, Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Month. We also worked with Board Water Supply on a Summer of Ohia Love social media campaign. And we're working to establish the Plant Pono Pest program with, thanks to funds from Chrissy Martin and CGAPS. We're super grateful for that, because this is a program, like Bisc had mentioned, like Franny had mentioned, that's working really well on some of our neighbor islands. So we're eager to get this established here. As always, thanks to our partners and funders. I hope I didn't go too much over. I was trying to go rapid fire. Again, check us out on social media, at our website, and feel free to email us if you have any questions. And that's it.
Okay.
Are you seeing my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So thanks. I'm Tiffany Canini, the manager of Hawaii Invasive Species Committee, and I'll give you a quick update on a variety of our projects. Quick intro to KISC. Thanks, Franny and Nate, for giving those good overviews of what ISCs are. So KISC is a project under the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit under the University of Hawaii, and we really are a gap filling. We're intended to be a supplement existing programs while filling gap role on Kauai and assisting in the coordination of partnership efforts island-wide on a variety of science-driven management strategies. KISC operations are species-based like the other islands. Our team works across the island on private and public land to detect and control target species, including invasive plants, animals, insects, and pathogens. KISC management strategies include early detection and rapid response to prevent the establishment of priority incipient species, long-term control and eradication on target plant and insect species, community awareness, and partnership development and collaboration. And this one's really to mitigate the impact of high priority species that are beyond the scope of KISC's mission and our field work. The map highlights the KISC field activities in 2021 and 2022. The data that I'll quickly review today are from these dates. In summary, with some of what you're seeing on the map, we have surveyed around 60,000 acres. Most of those are with aerial surveys for rapid ohia death. And we've controlled a total of 6,372 individuals. Working towards the strategic objective of control and long-term eradication of our target plant species, we conduct aerial and ground detection surveys followed by population and seed bank suppression. The control methods really vary depending on the species and the site. For our long-term legacy species, here I highlight the surveyed acres and the plants treated for 8 of our target species at about 60 sites over the last 2 years. Target species include false kava, ivy gourd, longfern kiave, kudzu. I should note that the species that spread vegetatively, all of the plants that are controlled are considered mature. So an example of that would be arundo, which spreads by rhizome, or false cava, which spreads vegetatively. We have surveyed, I'm having a hard time. We have surveyed 4,500 acres and controlled a little under 4,000 individual plants. So for each one of the sites, the survey frequency that we have to determine is based on biological information and control efforts. This includes things like the initial control date at the site, the last treatment date, the life stage of the controlled plant if it was mature or seeding, regeneration rate, if that's known in the literature, the last detection date, soil seam bank longevity, as well as the reproductive maturity age. To update on the site management status of our active plant species, these are both target and early detection plant species. Working towards that long-term goal of island-wide eradication, we first have to eliminate the species from the individual sites. Out of 163 work sites, we have successfully extirpated or eliminated the target plant species from 69 sites, and 23 sites are in our monitoring stage. That means that we haven't detected the plant for a while. The time period depends on the species, and we're monitoring it annually to ensure that successful elimination at that site. 42 are in active management stage, which it means we are currently detecting them and controlling them, both mature and immature, depending on the species. 29 sites are pending. What this really means is it's either newly detected site or we're having, it's pending access or other logistical hurdles. I should note that all of these sites, depending on the species, some of them range less than 1 acre and some of them are over 100 acres. And I'll update on a few of those. Myconia is our #1 plant target, as with OISC, and this is because of its demonstrated ability to form those monotypic stands in Hawaii forested watersheds. It's still only found in the priority watershed buffer area in Wailua watershed on Kauai, as you can see in the map. So over the last 20 years, KISC has managed to keep it contained to about 7,700 acres. And how KISC defines our infestation area is a 1,375 meter buffer around all known mature trees. Our management strategies include aerial detection surveys, which was recently increased this year, ground surveys with chemical or physical control. With the renewed herbicide ballistic technology label that Nate mentioned, we will be reintegrating HBT back into our Myconia program this year, which is very exciting. In 2021, we completed a few trial drone surveys. Unfortunately, those didn't prove very promising due to the albizia coverage and the steep terrain. But we will continue to do some of the drone trial surveys this following year and hopefully make some adjustments that'll make them more effective. Unfortunately, in 2021 and 2022, aerial surveys detected 13 mature plants. Luckily, these were only found in known hotspot areas. 3 of these were previously detected as immature plants that needed to be only controlled with HBT. In the picture on the top left, you can see Myconia taken from our heli survey. And what we're kind of observing on Kauai is that when they're growing under the thick aluhe, they tend to grow more slow. And then upon erupting and getting into the light, they set seeds pretty quickly, making it kind of challenging to detect and treat before they become mature. We have surveyed over 3,000 acres aerially and around 400 acres on the ground and controlled 1,217 plants. I should note that the immature plants are any plant that has not flowered or set seed. So the immature plants can range from seedlings to plants that are a couple years old. This higher number over 1,000 is because they've controlled a carpet of sprouts or seedlings that's underneath a previously controlled mature Myconia. So Myconia is not in high densities in these areas. Another long-term control and eradication target is long-term Kiawe. The largest populations are found along the south and west coasts of Kauai. We have completed about 400 acres of survey and treated around 900 individual plants these last 2 years. There's one mature stand in the area that's shown in red, I believe, on the map. Yeah. That will need to be hydroaxed in order to eliminate our last known seeding source for the population. We are currently looking for funding for that. I'm highlighting the long-term Kiawe control program because it's kind of unique for KISC. The first objective is our normal objective, which is to detect, treat, and monitor our long-term Kiawe, working towards the goal of eradication of the existing population to increase the survivability of our native plant species in the area. But the second objective, which is unique to this project, was to map out existing native plants at the site. So during the botanical surveys, we noted the promising native seed plant succession in the area. So KISC has worked on a pilot project to explore native seed dispersal methods to help diversify the soil seed bank at the site after our target species is removed. This is an ongoing project, so we'll have more to update on that in the future. Another goal of KISC is the detection and eradication of incipient invasive plant species. We do this with our plant early detection program, and it was developed with the intent to identify and prioritize incipient species for potential eradication and to eventually add them to the KISC target species plant list. The program systematically inventories, maps, and evaluates potential impacts of early invaders island-wide to help prioritize these species. We have 42 preliminary assessments complete and background distribution data on 62 other species of interest. All of these reports are published on our website, so you can go to our website if you want more details on them. The assessments include taxonomy, ecology, geospatial data, impacts on our natural community structure and composition, impacts to agriculture, culture, and human systems, as well as looking at impacts to the biotic and abiotic processes. And of course, one of the most important is the feasibility of control characteristics. So with the assessments complete, we are working on delimiting surveys and we'll be updating the scores of each one of these assessments. In the last year and a half, we have completed a little less than 260 acres of ground surveys, as well as continued our roadside surveys. One of the management strategies for our early detection species is prioritizing species near high value, high elevation habitat. Sorry, here. So we partnered with Kokee Resource Conservation Program in 2021 to complete delimiting surveys and initial control efforts. They looked at 5 of our early detection species and surveyed about 35 acres total. And they did do initial control efforts. A little over 2,000 plants were detected and controlled. So with this updated data from the partnership effort, we'll be working on updating the assessments to review if these will become long-term targets of KISC. Moving past our plant programs and onto our control and eradication of priority pest species, specifically little fire ant. So KISC continues to assist Hawaii Department of Agriculture in the ongoing detection and treatment of little fire ants at our 3 known infestation sites on Kauai. The first LFA population on Kauai was contained to about 11 acres in the Kalihiwai area. With the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, KISC, and Hawaii Ant Lab multi-year eradication efforts have proved pretty promising, and the last LFA was detected at that site in January 2019. We're currently in the monitoring phase for the site, so we just go back and survey yearly. The second known LFA population was contained to about 2.5 acres, with the treatment again proving promising, and the last detection at the site, I believe, was March 2020. And this site is moving into our monitoring stage. The third site was detected last year in July in an agricultural area in Moloa'a, and we are currently, again, all of this is working with Hawaii Department of Agriculture in the initial 18-month treatment stage for this 13-acre site. Another partnership project is our early detection and response to rapid ohia death. And this is in partnership with DOFA and the Kauai ROD response team. And they've implemented a variety of response strategies, including increased capacity on Kauai with ROD dedicated staff. Unfortunately, KISC has had a vacancy in our ROD team for the last few months. So most of the KISC field contributions to ROD response on Kauai that I'm going to review are from 2021. We are accepting applications for the ROD response team if you know anyone that's interested. Moving forward to a Kauai ROD status update. So there's been 186 positive leukohea detections, 126 positive juliohea detections. We've detected both species in 4 trees, and there's been 308 trees sampled with no detections. This is all time data, not just in the last year, this is all time. So in summary, to date, we have about 50% of the samples have come back positive with a total of 312 trees. And we're seeing this 60-40 split where 60% are leukohea has been detected and 40% are juliohea detections. This 60-40 split is a ratio that we have been seeing over the last couple of years, interestingly. With the intent to reduce the inoculum released into the landscape and limiting potential local spread and rapidohea death, a variety of management strategies have been implemented. We've included these in the island-wide strategic plan, which is currently being updated this year. And within the plan, we highlight the early detection and monitoring surveys, which include semi-annual island-wide DMSM surveys in partnership with DOFA and other entities. And then we have more frequent quarterly priority 1 aerial surveys. We do have drone monitoring plots that are set up in positive detection areas. Some of these plots, we provide data for SDAV lab for their analysis. Once there is a positive detection, we use a variety of containment or management tools. Each response is uniquely tailored to the individual forest, the landowner, and the situation, and we develop site-specific management plans for each of these. Island-wide partnerships are key on our rapidohea death management on Kauai, and we partner with both private and public land managers and owners. And statewide partnership collaborations really help support Kauai-specific ROD research, and I'll highlight one of those projects. The first detection of ROD in Kauai presented its own, or in Kokee, excuse me, presented its own challenges with the location and proximity to other healthy ohia and endangered plants. So felling the tree, which is our go-to option, was not feasible due to the proximity and possibility of injuring other plants. The ROD team needed to focus on a containment strategy to include hopefully mitigating the beetle activity of the tree for the trees in the high value native forest. This began a partnership effort with USDA Forest Service, specifically Mark Hughes, KISC, and DOFA to begin treatment trials to reduce the ambrosia beetle attacks and subsequent release of frass and inoculum into the environment. The trial was approved in July 2021, and we're currently working on those trials for a handful of trees that fit the parameters. After the trials are complete, there will likely be an update on the outcome of the results from the lead researcher. So stay tuned. Additional projects at KISC is assisting HDOA in the rapid response of coqui frog reports and detections to help prevent the widespread establishment. In the last 2 years, in partnership and assisting HDOA, we've controlled 23 coqui frogs, which were reported by the Kauai community at 8 different locations across the island. One of the locations is a possible breeding population, which required multiple revisits and control efforts. I think the coqui response on Kauai really highlights how a multi-entity partnership can help build rapid response capacity on Kauai and leverage all of our limited resources. KISS also works on additional early detection and rapid response to eliminate the high priority pest species that are unknown to be present on the island. So a few examples of that is Niothrips. We do island-wide surveys on 53 locations at 9 population areas across the island. We have not detected Niothrips yet. And KISC also reserves a 2-week response capacity to assist in the event that Niothrips is detected on island. After that initial 2 weeks or 80 hours response, we'll have to complete an evaluation to determine if it will become a long-term control program of KISC. Another partnership is with Mamalu Poi Poi, and that's the monthly monitoring of swarm traps for Africanized honeybees and coconut rhinoceros beetles at the airport, as well as annual LFA surveys and palm tree surveys at the airport. We also complete island-wide little fire ant surveys to aid in the early detection before widespread establishment on the island. We've surveyed high-risk areas, including greenway stations, ports, nurseries, as well as others that are deemed high risk. And over the last year and a half, we have completed 65 acres of survey at outside of the 3 known detections. One of our new partnership projects is a collaboration with DOFA. And this is the idea is the long-term goal of this collaborative development of an island-wide multi-entity strategic management plan to address Albesia on Kauai. This is one of those ones that falls outside the scope of our mission, but it is a collaborative partnership to help address this. So this year we are focusing on stakeholder engagement and collaboration, defining priorities, resources, and individual stakeholder goals. And we'll have also an updated assessment of the Albesia population distribution and density. So stay tuned for an update of that one next year, hopefully. Last and certainly not least is our KISC has this extensive outreach and education program. These programs help raise awareness, generate support, and build collaborative partnerships that have successfully built detection and response capacity on Kauai. The outreach programs include the Pono Endorsement Program, Forest Friday webinars, Kauai Ohia Outreach, seed collecting workshop, boat breast stations and educational signage, biosanitation workshops, sampling trainings, student citizen science projects, and many other virtual and in-person programs. And that is all I have for you. But in summary, I think collaborative partnerships build capacity and leverage our limited resources so we can protect Kauai and Hawaii from high priority invasive species. Thank you.
Oh, we gave a good turnout today. We get 100 people on.
More than 100. Thank
I
you.
love that people want to know about invasive species. It impacts every part of our life.
Okay, Mahina,
So-
go in. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get to presenter mode.
But aloha, everybody. I'm Auntie Lori Buchanan from Molokai, Maui Invasive Species Committee. I'm the project coordinator for MOMISC on Molokai for quite some time. Yeah, we can go next slide. But that's a beautiful picture of Halava Valley on Molokai. This is us. This is my field crew, Kamalani Pali, Kavehi Suarez, and Tyson Baktal, myself in the middle, and my right and left arm, Mahina Poi Poi, who is a very part-time outreach and education and whatever I need her to be today, sharing my PowerPoint. Thank you, Mahina. Next. And I just quickly put this in actually, like about 2 minutes ago, because I heard everybody before us presenting, and I just wanted to shout out to all the ISK, man. You guys rock, man. I tell you, I don't know where Hawaii would be without the ISK. So I'm just gonna cover the 8 priority species or that that Momis has today. And I wanted to kind of touch on, I put this in there, Rashan, because you asked earlier about, how we work and how you can target stuff. And there's a lot of complex thinking that goes up, especially for Momis, because we have such a small crew. It's almost like if you have $1, what are you going to spend your dollar on? So you better make darn sure that you get the most bang for your buck, and that you're going to be successful in the end. And so very common sense kind of stuff goes into how we target our species. And you can see on the left that we have a priority, an EDRR control and assessing, almost like how you just saw KISS having to be assessing 42 species. That's kind of the same. Prevention, education, not present and present. So there's some species on the island that is widespread, like we all have. And so what do we do about it? Sometimes you have to move to education and outreach on like you saw at BISC, stop buying this. So next one. And then I just wanted to point out something on this next slide where you say control. And the control is a pest that is abundant, but it qualifies for control for some reason. And that's a local kind of reason. So in this, you see upside down jellyfish for Momis. We're probably the only AS that is doing a marine species. And why are we doing it? Well, we're really simple. Upside down jellyfish was in an area at the
Oh, it doesn't say when it closes.
in Kalakakai at the wharf, in a designated swimming area. So Molokai only has one public swimming pool, and during the times that it's shut down, all of the local children swim there. And so people were getting stung by this jellyfish. So that human health is also one of the big criteria for us when we target something besides all of the natural resource part with feasibility. So next, and if anybody has questions, we can talk about that. So I'm going to move right in quickly because I know Thea has her presentation waiting. This is one of our priority species, Albizia, and you've heard others talk about it, but you will see that this is the area on Molokai, kind of like it wasn't really big and widespread, but next slide. Just graphing it for you guys here. So in 2008 is pretty much when we figured out after all of the due diligence and early detection surveys throughout the island, we decided, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to spend the money, and this is the worst weed. Every island, nobody has to tell us that it's a worst weed. And so we target it. And so you can see how over the years in 2021 and 2022, our detection was 0. But my personal I hate to use the E word. And so we don't really say stuff is eradicated unless we, a report wants to push it. All we do is move this species to the early detection and rapid response for status. So next. So this is gooseberry, Pareskia, and this is in a valley in remote East Molokai in Halava Valley. And on your left, you see the number of controlled and hours. And then next slide. The graph. So when we started really controlling it in 2006, and then you can see over the past few years, the decline, the significant decline. And then in 2022, this far, we found one little straggler. And so again, we're moving these species to early detection and rapid response. Okay, next. Bodhi tree. It's was pretty distributed, you know, in Central and East Molokai. It did not pose a problem earlier in the years until we had the introduction of the pollinator wasp. And seeing the widespread on all of the other islands, we did target this as a priority. And then next. And then you can see from the graph our control. And again, down to 2020, 2021, and 2022, the decline over the years. For this species, we know of 2 or 3 mature trees where it is a recalcitrant landowner that we continue to try and work with because Bodhi trees is really significant in culture. So that's the problem why we can't get rid of like the last 2 trees. So next. And I have my staff on here too. They want to chime in. Longthorn Kiawe, like you saw from KISS, we kind of really went off of in the early years of KISS. We thought, wow, KISS is going to do Longthorn Kiawe. So we started early detection surveys for Longthorn Kiawe and found that it was pretty much concentrated to the west end of Molokai. And it was really from one of our committee members who was really pushing hard for us to control Longthorn Kiawe, that we really did assess this target for priority control, and we did. And then next, and then here you see the graph. So my field crew is doing a really great job. The MOMIS field crew is doing a really great job at really knocking down the priority species because it's a priority. And our priority is for 0. It is eradication. Next. And then New Zealand Flats was really done in partnership with the Nature Conservancy and the watershed partnerships to do outside of their management areas. And so we continue to do that. And I think we've been successful. And so next. And there's your graph again. And so the Nature Conservancy watershed has purview over the New Zealand flax outside of that control area. And then thank you, we went straight to quail bush. And you know, quail bush is part of that. I gotta give some shout out to Forrest and Kim Starr from Maui, who did way back in the day. I don't know, I think it was 2005. Yeah, Forrest, that they did early detection roadside survey. This was one of the species on there, and we always go back to that baseline survey done a long time ago to see how things are coming along on Molokai. This was one of them. So systematically, we will take stuff from that list and see, you know, if it's exploding, how it's doing. And in this case, we targeted quail bush. Next. And there's the graph. Good job, MOMIS field crew. Okay, next. Rubber vine, beautiful. Rubber vine is beautiful, but not a great plant to have. This plant was one of our most challenging because of the airborne seeds for dispersal, they were wing for dispersal. And so you can see from east to west, and it was a big, it's a pretty showy plant. And so it was sold in the nursery industry. So next. And then you can see in 2017, we found a new population like out in the middle of nowhere. And that's the reason for the spike. But since then, because of the hard work of the MOMIS crew, you can see that we're finding below 20 at this point in all populations. Mahina, can you go back to the map? Sorry. And you can see, yeah, there's a lot of populations of rubber vine. So now to be finding less than 20 at all populations is awesome. Okay, thank you. And then next. Tree daisy. I'm so old, I can remember when it was a target for Honouliuli on Oahu from the Nature Conservancy. And that was the first time I found out, well, like what was tree daisy? And then when I saw it, I said, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Like most of the invasive species, some are beautiful, like rubber vine, but really invasive. And so we discovered we had a population on Molokai, in central Molokai, probably again through the landscaping trade, just to be planting as an ornamental. And so we did target it because we found we didn't find it anywhere else on Molokai. So next. There's our graph. Again, this species moves to early detection out of priority. We are meeting early in 2023, reconvening our committee since we didn't convene from COVID. So next. Oh, and that's the end. There's my contact on here. That's my cell phone number. Wanted to thank our partners. And outside of this, we really do work well with our committee members, the Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy, our various ranch owners in collaboration. And that is what makes us successful. And I wanted to expound on what Tiffany said about being a gap filler and having that flexibility as an ISC. That's I think key to our success. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So we'll come back to this picture. This is us in our new old home, but let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So starting with plants, these are the different species that we worked on in 2021. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. If you were to measure or determine what our priority species are by the amount of effort, time, resources that go into them, then for sure, Miconia and pampas grass remain our top two plant species. Working East Maui, you can see its westward extent. It was only ever detected once on West Maui, and so we consider that we are successful in keeping Miconia to one side of the island, just to East Maui. And we have a full-time HANA crew that focuses on that, and as true for the other ISCs dealing with Miconia is, of course, both a ground and aerial effort. And for pampas grass, what you don't see here on this map, you don't see any dots in West Maui. It is very present in West Maui. And unfortunately, during 2021, we really were not able to spend much time there. So we're hoping to rectify that with, now that we were able to fly more, and also have, hopefully, as I think Nate stressed a lot, it is often funding dependent. Next, please. So just the focal area for Miconia right now, our plant crew is doing a lot of work on making sure that we're not vectoring, that Miconia is not being vectored along the roadways. So they are doing a lot of control work along the roadways. We have some additional funding this coming year, FY23, from the county to focus on Miconia. And so we're hoping to be able to expand back into some of the areas where we have been working in the past with the ground crew. Next, please. As Nate also mentioned about HBT, that has been a key tool for us to address Myconia. This map shows both the suitable habitat for Myconia, where we think it could get into, and then our priorities for, if we always have limited resources. So priorities for use of HBT, which we again have that available as a tool, which is awesome. So as you can see, our top priorities are the westward extent to keep it from spreading farther in that direction, and then our higher elevation areas. And then of course, trying to keep it out of Haleakala National Park. Next. We recently looked again at our early detection and rapid response priorities, and like many of the ISKs, we have been part of the Mamalu Poi Poi project and what is now, I believe, being called the Port Monitoring Program. Same kinds of approaches, checking populations of NIO that we know to look for thrips there, checking palms to look for damage of coconut rhinoceros beetle, and of course, devilweed, surveying high-risk locations, and then also the be on the lookout for species. And then additionally, doing some location-based work, not nursery surveys in the way that Forrest and Kim, and I should give a shout out to them. They are our key early detection and rapid response team, who have done exhaustive work in the past, both surveying like what's in the nursery, what might be in the nursery, what could be bad, but being more focused in the future, given time constraints. And the same with road surveys, not trying to survey all roads on the island, but focused on our target species, and then also the be on the lookout species, adding in some trail surveys, and then, as I mentioned, the ports and harbors. And Forrest and Kim have always been very good at following up on reported insects or reported things and reported unknown things on Flickr, et cetera, and also publishing records so that we try to keep up to date in our collective knowledge of what's where. And then, like the other ISK, we've also been participating in the nursery project on plants and pathogens that are not known to occur in the island. So doing a lot of training and outreach in that area. And our outreach specialist, Serena Fukushima, is taking the lead on that. Next, please. So in terms of another early detection target is the rose-ring parakeet, which we know of 12 total detections. And once we heard about it, we have done a fair amount of outreach to get folks to encourage and to spread the word so that people are aware that this is not welcome on our island. To date, we have had 3 birds captured. One was turned in, one voluntary turned in to now a Humane Society, and then someone else who captured one on the beach and turned it into us. And then MISC also responded to a report, MISC staff. And it sounds like there were some hats involved in capturing this bird. So we've been successful at capturing all of those that have been reported. And then 4 other birds have been removed from West Maui, the Napili area. And our latest count, we believe we have 5 remaining. So that's a bit of a stealth operation. Fortunately, they're in a location that makes it feasible to, we think, take them on, remove them using air power and without hopefully causing them to disperse. Next. Turning to koki frogs, this is all-time reports of koki frog, what we call outliers. These are typically single frogs. And this is, we don't like to show this map because of what it shows in terms of occurrence, but it does give that feeling of what would Maui be looking like in terms of koki frogs if we weren't actively responding and removing them. So there is no doubt the game would have been lost by now if we were not out there actively responding. Next, please. So our key populations, we have eradicated many. I actually don't know the number of populations, but if somebody wants to count quickly and put that in the chat, that'd be great. How many green dots are there? Our our most dense and most challenging infestation remains Maliko, and all of those dots, yellow and orange to the right, really reflect spread from that area, either probably by cars or by cars and people, most from that high density infested area. Next, please. Some of the key elements of our control program for koki include direct control spraying. Thank you, 34 eradicated, awesome. Thank you for that says me, but I think it's Brooke actually. So a key element, we took a lesson from the good work of Franny Kinslow Brewer on Hawaii Island for what does a community control program look like, and launched that really actively in 2019 to empower local residents to take on control. So providing them with training, providing them with equipment, providing them with citric acid, and oh, it's Serena. Thanks, Serena. So providing them with information about how to do it and training, and then also tracking what they're able to accomplish. And that has been quite successful. Even in one case, a group of one residential area canceling a spray operation because it had been quiet. So we're not calling any of these areas eradicated yet, but the infestation is so large on Maui, or so dense in that area, that we would I don't think we'll ever have adequate resources to do it on our own. So we definitely need and appreciate the support of our community, the engagement of our community. As we know, the sizes of our groups can vary from an actual subdivision or a part of a neighborhood or individual properties. We're willing to work with everyone. And the deployment of these signs helps inform folks that we're going to be in the area. It helps remind people to participate, and also provides information about how they can get in touch with us. Next, please. One other tool that we are using for our koki project is acoustic monitoring. One of the things with koki, if you have been in an infested area, you know how hard it is to tell how many frogs are there. And so it makes it hard for us to show progress if an infested area has, let's say, 100 frogs. We've maybe reduced it to 50%, but it still sounds like a bucket load of frogs. And so this use of acoustic monitoring devices is intended to help us get a handle on changes in intensity. And so we have more than 30 of these devices deployed at present, and we're looking forward to getting more data from that project. That's with Conservation Metrics. So we're looking forward to seeing what the data analysis shows us about that over time. It certainly does show progress. We know that. Next, please. Also upcoming for our koki project is a koki barrier fence. This is a project that was supported and funded by DLNR DOFA. We really appreciate the leadership of our local DOFA to help bring resources to make this happen. And the concept for this would be to deploy these fences, these barrier fences. It's a mesh product, and if a koki climbs up the side of it and then tries to climb on the top, it falls down. They're apparently not able to hang on upside down, and so the lip would face away from the protected area and towards the area that is heavily infested. And while it might be an interesting art project to try to fence the entire Maliko Gulch, the concept is to deploy this in areas where active control is taking place. And we want to prevent the constant incursion of koki from heavily infested areas, such as Maliko Gulch, as you can see a deep gulch on the other side of this fence. Next, please. So on to little fire ants, and if you have questions I can't answer, I think Brooke Mencken, our lead for Little Fire Ant Project, is with us. Next. So just an overview of little fire ant populations on Maui. We have had a total of 18 that have been detected. Of those, we are belief that we have eradicated 5 of them, and that means 5 years without any detections at that site. We have another 6 that are in the monitoring phase, which means we have not detected fire ants at them for over a year, and we're on our way, we hope, to a 5-year point. And then 7 that are in active control, an active control status. With our largest one, you can see all those red dots connected together for Nahiku, and we'll talk about that next. This is the Nahiku infestation, and I think a number of you may have seen, hopefully you have seen some of Brooke's excellent presentations on our work in Nahiku. This was a development, we worked closely with Hawaii Ant Lab and also with Hawaii Department of Agriculture to develop this approach, because it's so large and in such gnarly vegetation that there is no way that we could control this infestation just by trying to do it on the ground. And so our team developed, Brooke and Adam Knox, and I know Adam Bradford was involved in that, in developing an aerial treatment method. So basically, I think a lot of invasive species folks, the community is familiar with use of long line for controlling plants. And so it was trying to figure out how to do that with this gloppy gel bait to get the bait and the insect growth regulator into a mixture that would stick to the leaves in the trees, because if we can't control them in the trees, we're never going to be successful, since they are arboreal and ground nesting species. So this shows the area. This shows where all of these different vials were put out with peanut butter as a bait to determine what the extent of the infestation was before we began the aerial treatment. Next. And Brooke developed a complex, comprehensive grid system with 14-meter hexagonal plots to really ensure that the crews that went in on the ground had very thorough coverage to look at what the situation was after repeat treatments. And Brooke, if you're online, you can say how many treatments have been done. I think we're at something like 13 treatments so far, but I'm not sure how many were done before this repeat survey was done. Next.
I think it says on the slide, if you get to it.
Okay, I don't know if that one's in here or not. So this is what it looks like after treatment, and you can see that the blue is good. No little fire ant are detected in all of those, any of those 4,071 vials that were put out and collected. And then the areas where we did detect it, that glob, the most Malka glob of red dots showing where that were LFA positive. A lot of that was outside of the treatment area, which is interesting. So they did additional surveys to determine where were they, and it was largely in areas that had not been fully treated. So we were very much looking forward to a re-survey of this project, and that is coming up next month. And this requires a total of 3 weeks with a lot of partner help. So all hands on deck for all this crew, regardless of what you think your job is, if it's Koki or plants, they will be helping with this survey in September, and we will also have support from some of our other partners as we did in the past, which we greatly appreciate. Next. As every others have emphasized, we cannot, and we absolutely cannot do our work without strong outreach and education program. That is absolutely critical. And we see that in reports, for example, of the parakeets, reports of other pests, of, hey, this thing shouldn't be here. And so our program involves active and returning, as our other programs returning to more active in-person presentations, workshops, et cetera. Looking forward to that. Also, we just recently hired a half-time position to help with our Huike o Haleaka Law, not only teacher workshops, but also classroom visits, and also to help carry some of the load for our Maui-based Maui Mauka Conservation Awareness training that we do in partnership with East Maui Watershed Partnership, Maui Forest Bird Recovery Program. And I think those are the key ones. Serena, you can add in if I've forgotten any of the key partners there. And also just to highlight some of the recent coverage that we've had. This Green Planet, the final series on that with addressing humans and their interaction featured work using HBT to control myconia, as well as Hank Oppenheimer with the Plant Extinction Prevention Program, highlighting that important work. So that was a very exciting opportunity for us to work and with the David Attenborough BBC series, and to feature really for all of Hawaii the importance of this work on the national level. Next. So we are based, when I started at MISC back in 2002, we were based at Old Maui High, and then we spent a bunch of years up at the Pi'iholo Base Yard, owned by UHCTAR, and we are now back at Old Maui High. You can see we have a little work to do in terms of, getting our buildings going. Well, no, actually we won't be doing that one. Next, please. So this is this shows the map of Old Maui High, and we are mostly our operational area would be the southern part. I think this faces north, yes. And thank you. Yeah, that's our operational area in there. The buildings 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that area. And then we occupy one classroom there. This site was built, the school was built in 1913. So it has a lot of opportunities for repair and maintenance, but also a lot of opportunities in terms of expanding into a larger conservation campus. And so that's something that we are excited about and actively working on. Next. And I think final. So as others have said, our work depends on our awesome crew, our staff, our supervisors, our coordinators, and of course, our partners. I haven't listed all of them, but we are a UH-PCSU project. We have very close working relationships with DOFA and Department of Ag on Maui. And of course, we are very grateful for most of our funding that comes through HISC and through the County of Maui. Thank you.